Hello and welcome to this exciting new features in nRF Connect SDK version 2.0.0 webinar. I'm one of your hosts today. My name is Björn Kvåle. I'm a product marketing engineer at Nordic Semiconductor, and with me I have Ali Aljani, who's a developer marketing manager at Nordic Semiconductor. Just some quick practicalities before we get started. So the duration will be approximately 45 minutes for the presentation with a 15-minute Q&A at the end. Questions are encouraged, but please type the questions in the top of the right sidebar. It should look something like this. All of the questions are anonymous, but try to keep them relevant to the topic and we'll answer them towards the end. The chat on the bottom right is not anonymous and should not be used for questions. If you have any more questions after the webinar is over, feel free to go to Nordic DevZone. That's devzone.nordicsemi.com if you have more questions. And a recording of the webinar will be available together with the presentation at webinars.nordicsemi.com/on-demand a few days after the webinar is done. So just a quick agenda. I'll do a quick intro to the nRF Connect SDK before I hand it off to Ali for generic updates and also short-range updates. And last but not least, I'll go through the Cellular IoT updates before we head on over to the Q&A. Just some quick information on communities. So we do have a bunch of different webinars, which basically gives technology intros and trainings over at nordicsemi.com/webinars. So feel free to head there to sign up for upcoming webinars, but also to watch, some of our recordings. We do have a bunch of different recordings on a wide variety of topics that might be very useful for you. We also have the Nordic Developer Zone, which is our tech support center and online community. Last I checked, we had, over 29,000 users, more than 80,000 posts in the Q&A section, and 3 million page visits in the last 6 months. So if you're interested in that, feel free to go to devzone.nordicsemi.com for that. And we also have a blog and the guides there. So very technical information, so feel free to check that out there. And last but not least, we also have Nordic GitHub, where we have a bunch of different repositories, mostly written in C, C++, but also some in Python and JavaScript. And that's over at github.com/Nordic Semiconductor. Just a quick nRF Connect SDK intro before I hand over to Ali. So the nRF Connect SDK is one codebase and toolchain for the nRF 91 series, nRF 53 series, nRF 52 series, and nRF 21 series. It is optional for the nRF 52 series since version 1.3.0. So as you probably know, the nRF 91 series is our Cellular IoT series. nRF 53 and 52 series is a lot of different short-range protocols, such as Bluetooth LE, Thread, Zigbee, Matter, etc. And the nRF 21 series is our range extender. So this SDK does include a bunch of different protocols. So we include LTM, Narrowband IoT, GNSS, Bluetooth Low Energy, Bluetooth Mesh, Thread, Zigbee, Matter, ESP, Gazelle, and NFC. We do have a Bluetooth version 5.3 qualified host and controller stack since version 2.0.0. So in this release, it was our own SoftDevice Controller that has been version 5.3 qualified. So yeah, without further ado, I'll hand over to Ali for the generic updates in nRF Connect SDK version 2.0.0.
Hi everyone, my name is Ali Aljani and I'm a developer marketing manager here at Nordic Semiconductor. Today, I'll first walk you through some of the major generic updates, and after that, I'll cover the short-range updates. By generic updates, I mean updates that applies to your nRF Connect SDK application regardless of your choice of wireless protocol. The first update I'll talk about is the simplified software license report generation. So your application could use an X number of components from the rich nRF Connect SDK. So you get to explicitly specify which components you want to compile in. And components in the nRF Connect SDK could have different licenses. And the way you kind of like used to dig to know the information of the licenses is by going to the folder of these components. You need to go to the directory of these components and inspect the license file or the SPDX tags in the source code. And this task could be a bit time consuming, specifically if you have an application that uses many components from the SDK. That's why we have introduced now the NCS-SBOM West extension. This extension can really help you with generating the license report. So it does the most of the hard work for you. It scans any nRF Connect SDK project or application and report discovered licenses. It could support multiple output formats. It's very customizable, very flexible extension. It's actually, as you'll see in the documentation by clicking here, it's a Python script that you need to first install. And once you install it, you can use the command line to interface with it. I'll just show you quickly some of the outputs of this cool extension. So what you see here is the license report for one of the sample that I built, which is the peripheral UART. It's the Nordic UART service sample, very popular Bluetooth Low Energy sample. And I built a folder, and then I specified the -T option, which is currently, by the way, is experimental. So you might see a warning when you use it. And nevertheless, it kind of like scanned the used modules in this sample and reported the discovered licenses. And it will also, for example, in this BSD3 clause, if you click here, as you'll see in the next screen, it will show you which files it found, which modules you're using in your application that are using this license. Quite convenient extension. Let me just show you Visual Studio Code and show you how I've kind of like done this. So this is a built peripheral UART sample. And in the terminal, what you need to do first is to install it, and the instructions are here in the link that I have in the presentation. So like it's simple installation, and then it shows you the different ways you can specify input, specify output. The detectors, are you detecting SPDX tags? Are you detecting the full license files? You can all specify here. So you can just so this is the command that I actually used to generate these two reports in the presentation, and they will be in the you need to do them in the directory of the application, and it needs to be built if you want to use the -D command. And I recommend you that you start with the -H to kind of like familiarize yourself with the parameters. And as you can see, again, the -D is still in experimental mode. So when you run it, it's fine to see this warning for now. Okay, let's move to the next feature. Integrated Development Environment, or IDE updates. So as you know, the nRF Connect SDK is IDE agnostic. You can simply use it from the command line, use any editor you like. However, the officially supported IDE starting from this SDK is the Visual Studio Code through our nRF Connect for Visual Studio Code extension pack. And this is kind of like the what we recommend as the best development environment. Note that the Sega Embedded Studio Nordic Edition is no longer tested and recommended for new nRF Connect SDK project starting from this release. However, the Sega Embedded Studio is still the recommended IDE for nRF5 SDK. We have made a significant improvement to the nRF Connect for Visual Studio Code. And I'm listing here just a few of them. So now you can actually save and share build configuration through CMake presets, and you can edit build configuration. So before, when you wanted to make a new build configuration, what you usually do is to add a new build configuration and then specify what you want to make a new in this build configuration. Well, now you can right-click on that build configuration and just edit it. It's quite convenient. And we have also kind of like improved the searching within the nRF Connect for Visual Studio Code extension. So you can search only in the source file of the application. You can search the text that you selected directly in DevZone or in our nRF Connect SDK documentation. The symbol, the kconfig symbol search is way more improved, and you can always check the release notes of the nRF Connect for Visual Studio Code extension. So our team vigorously kind of like work on this improvement. Let me see why this link is not opening. Okay, it's opening. So this is the kind of like, you can see that our team works on pushing updates for the extension on regular basis. So if you scroll down the release notes, you can see it's almost every month or every other month they're pushing updates, new features, new improvement, and this is the edit build configuration that I talked about, and the sharing, saving and sharing build configuration. So it's always a good idea to check these release notes to see the new features that you have in here. Back into the presentation. So yeah, always click on the release note to see the new cool things included in the Visual Studio Code. Okay, now let's talk about the installation experience. The Toolchain Manager, which is the Toolchain Manager is an app in the nRF Connect for desktop that really simplify the process of downloading and installing the nRF Connect SDK. It makes it as a one-click experience through the Toolchain Manager to get our SDK. Toolchain Manager is now available also on Linux. So it was supported on Windows and Mac OS, and now it is also supported on Linux, and we have tested it on Ubuntu 20.04. Okay, so it unified the installation experience of the nRF Connect SDK across all three major operating systems. Now, another update, the toolchain used in the nRF Connect SDK 2.0.0 is now based on the Zephyr SDK. So that's the name of the toolchain of the of Zephyr, instead of the GNU ARM embedded toolchain. And the goal here is to have a customized toolchain built and tuned explicitly for the Zephyr RTOS, which is kind of like what our SDK is based on internally. As of other changes in the nRF Connect SDK version 2.0.0, pin multiplexing and pin configuration are now managed by the pin controller subsystem. This subsystem is actually inspired by the Linux kernel, and it offers great standardization and portability for all drivers that interact with pins. So drivers like, by all I mean the drivers that kind of like interact with pins to route their signals, like UART, I2C, and so on. So all of these drivers now use a standardized method to configure the pins, which is great for portability again and standardization. And this also has the implication that the representation of hardware, which is through device tree, is now changed. So it uses something which is defined in the pin controller subsystem called state model. So you have different state, and then these states represent the pin configuration set to them. So if you have, like, for example, UART node, a device tree node, it could have two states when the device is active and when the device is asleep. So it's a standardized method to configure pins. And the next major change is the Trusted Firmware M is now replacing the Secure Partition Manager for Secure Image Firmware. So TFM is now enabled by default for most nRF 9160 and nRF 5340 applications and samples. And this is actually our first step in making TFM our default secure firmware implementation. There's a great guide that talks about all of these changes, and it will really help you if you want to migrate your drivers or your application from the old nRF Connect older version to the new versions. Okay, let's talk now about short-range updates. We have great updates here. So we added experimental Bluetooth LE audio support. This, in addition to the stack support, in addition to that, it includes a full-fledged application for the nRF 5340 audio decay. And our SoftDevice controller, Bluetooth Low Energy SoftDevice controller, is 5.3 qualified now, which means the whole stack, the host and the controller, is 5.3 qualified. And then when it comes to DFU, which is device firmware update, or we call it over-the-air device firmware update, we have made significant improvement when it comes to the speed when you use the Bluetooth LE Energy as a transport. So the SMP, which is the simple management protocol, which what we use to transport images, both server and client side has been improved and updated to give you a better performance when it comes to speed. We also have updates related to Thread and Zigbee that we will cover later. Let's first talk about the experimental Bluetooth LE audio support that we added in the latest version of the nRF Connect SDK, which is version 2.0.0. So as you know, Bluetooth LE audio is the next generation of Bluetooth audio. It has new features enabling a wide range of entirely new audio use cases. We actually hosted a webinar called Introduction to Bluetooth LE Audio last month, and if you're interested in LE Audio, please check it out. It's available on the same website that you used to register to this webinar, which is webinars.nordicsemi.com. It goes in depth into LE Audio. So the support that we have in the SDK now is that we have the LE Audio controller for the nRF 5340. That it's intended to be flash. It's intended to be flash on the network core of the nRF 5340 SoC. So this one is different from the SoftDevice controller or the Zephyr controller. It's specialized. It's intended for LE audio. And then we have the Bluetooth host, the same host as you use in the SDK, the LC3 library, the LE audio profiles, and also a full-fledged application sample that goes. That's actually a great starting point for your LE audio project. This sample is available in the SDK, in the application folder, and in there it's in this folder, nRF5340_audio. The sample support both connected isochronous stream, CIS, and broadcast isochronous stream, BIS. Both modes are supported, and you can use it in the receive side or the send side. So headset or gateway, you can configure this at build time, and it has a great documentation. So if you click here, it takes you to the documentation of the application. It tells you all the application modes possible, the firmware architecture, and so on. So it's a quite well-written kind of like application. That's a great starting point for your LE audio project. Let's move to the next update, which is the Bluetooth LE stack is now 5.3 qualified. So actually the controller, the SoftDevice Controller, is now 5.3 qualified. The host was already 5.3 qualified. So the full stack is now 5.3 qualified. And Bluetooth 5.3 is the latest revisions of the Bluetooth specification. It includes great features like the periodic advertisement enhancement. If you want to learn more about what's new in Bluetooth 5.3, check out this blog post we posted earlier. Next improvement is the that we touched upon early a little bit, which is the DFU. So DFU again is device firmware update. It allows you to at runtime flash your device with a new firmware image. And you can use multiple transports. One of the transport available is Bluetooth Low Energy, and we have made significant speed up improvements in the latest release of the SDK. And this speed up, the possible speed now is between 30 and 40 kilobyte per second. So that's about more than 3 times the speed up of the speed possible in the previous SDK, and it's even way more than this if you compare it to very old nRF Connect SDK version. So it even can achieve you 10x if you're using a very old nRF Connect SDK version. And for you to take advantage of this, you need to use the latest latest version of the nRF Connect Device Manager application. So use 1.3.0 or higher, and the improvements again are made for both the client, which is the mobile app, and the server, which is the sample that you have. So use the SMP server sample. That's the name of the sample. And then the sample support, again, multiple transports. So use the BT, the Bluetooth Low Energy fragment, to select the transport. And then you can see the app now. This is a new feature added. It will show you the throughput graph. You can see this is the graph of the actual speed, and the speed will be displayed here. And it will also show you the connection interval, the physical layer used, and the MTU used. And again, these parameters, these are also dependent on the client device. So that whether that's a smartphone or a tablet, so on, the device should support optimal Bluetooth low energy parameter affecting the throughput to take full advantage of this. Let's switch now to thread updates. So we have support for thread 1.2, which is no longer experimental, and now all the HomeKit over thread and Matter over thread samples in the SDK, all of them use the thread 1.2 libraries by default. And it's worth noting that the nRF Connect SDK version 2.0.0 is the first release with thread 1.2 certification compliance for all supported nRF 52 and nRF 53 series SoCs. So thread 1.2 builds on top of thread 1.1. It's fully backward compatible. And thread 1.2 is a stepping stone towards enabling Matter over thread. It brings low power enhancement like enhanced frame pending, enhanced keep alive, and coordinated sample listening, in addition to link metrics. It also have better support for large commercial deployment by introducing backbone router and domain unicast addressing and multicast across thread networks. So one of the important features introduced by thread 1.2 is the new low power role, which is called Synchronized Sleepy End Device, SSED for short. So now there are two low power roles available in thread: the Sleepy End Device, which is there from the beginning, and the new one, which is called the Synchronized Sleepy End Device. Let's actually examine the differences between these two roles. So as we can see in the diagram here, the sleepy end device has its radio turned off during idle period, and it wakes up periodically to communicate with its parent router. Okay, so why does it communicate with its parent router? To check if there are any messages queued for this device. And even if there is no such data for the sleepy end device, this communication has to happen. On the other hand, for the new role, which is the synchronized sleepy end device, SSED, which is actually utilizing the coordinated sampled listening mechanism. It has also its radio turned off during idle, okay? And it also wakes up periodically, okay? You can see the comparison. But it did not have to ask the parent router if there are, you see there is no arrows here, it has any messages queued for it. But it just listens for incoming messages at scheduled interval. And because of that, it can even preserve power. So you can see the activity period is now less. And there are many applications for this. For example, window shade, smokes alarms, and so on. And in this release of the nRF Connect SDK, we actually introduced a new sample, new matter sample, the window covering, that utilizes this new mechanism and this new role. Let's talk now about Zigbee updates. So in this release of the nRF Connect SDK, we have support for the Zigbee cluster library version 8 and the base device behavior version 3.0.1, which is no longer experimental. And these two specifications are now used by default in the Zigbee samples in the SDK. It's worth noting that these two specifications, they represent the consolidated app layer, the Zigbee consolidated app layer, which is the one tested during the Zigbee product certification. And also be aware that the older versions or the legacy version of these two specifications are no longer available for the new Zigbee product certification application after the 1st of April 2022. So namely the base device behavior version 1.0, the Zigbee cluster library version 6 and 7, they're no longer available for new Zigbee product certification application after the 1st of April 2022. That's why the nRF Connect SDK provides support for both the BDB version 3.0.1 and the Zigbee cluster library version 8, enabling certification and recertification of Zigbee products after the 1st of April 2022.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that, Ollie. Let's continue now with the Cellular IoT updates for nRF Connect SDK version 2.0.0. We do have a complete low-power cellular IoT solution available at Nordic Semiconductor. We have the nRF 9160 system in package, which has a dedicated application processor and memory. It also has a multi-mode LTM narrowband IoT modem with integrated RF front-end and GNSS support, and it is ultra-low power. In the middle, you can see we have the nRF Connect SDK, which is our SDK to be used with the nRF 9160. And we also have nRF Connect for Desktop, which provides a set of desktop tools, desktop applications, which can be very useful to use. So for example, the programmer application is very good for, let's say, modem updates. We also have a link monitor application, which is very useful for, say, sending AT commands, etc. We also have nRF Cloud. So that is a very good tool for, that's our sort of our cloud solution. So there you can easily, connect our nRF 9160 DK and Thingy 91 and easily just start prototyping. On the dev kit side, we have the nRF 9160 development kit, which is a standalone development kit. And we also have the Thingy 91, which is a prototyping platform. Both of those come with an eSIM from iBasis with 10 megabytes of data, and iBasis eSIM can be used all over the world, basically. They both also have an nRF 52A40 board controller with Bluetooth LE, and they have LTE, GNSS, and 2.4 gigahertz antennas. Just a quick overview of the nRF Connect SDK. So on the left-hand side, you can see here is the nRF 9160 system and package. All you really need to add is a battery, one or multiple sensors, SIM card, and GPS and LTE antennas. GPS is optional depending on whether you need to use it or not, but it's pretty, yeah. So most of the important things are actually inside the SIP itself, which is very useful. If you look on the right hand side, you can see you have here is the nRF Connect SDK, the layers for the cellular side. You can see the bottom layers that's included inside the modem firmware, and the top layers are inside nRF Connect SDK. So the bottom layers, it's all the way from PHY up to TLS, DTLS. You can see it includes the lower layers of the LTE stack. It has GPS, IPv4, IPv6, etc. Then the modem core communicates with the app core via the IPC shared memory. And then you have the app core side here. So starting from the top, you have the application. And then here you have different libraries and modules which help you out. You have a carrier library, which is required by some carriers. For example, AT&T and Verizon require the carrier library. We have different protocols that are supported and different other layers here, which are helpful, drivers, etc. So that was a quick overview there. On the modem firmware side, for nRF Connect SDK version 2.0.0, it is modem firmware version 132, which is supported. If you open up the compatibility matrix on our info center, you can see this chart. So here you can see, yeah, so if you want to use nRF Connect SDK version 2.0.0, you need to use modem firmware version 1.3.2. We also have a certification webpage, which goes more into detail on the certification process for the nRF 9160. So I'll talk a bit about modem firmware version 132 before we head over to the new features on nRF Connect SDK version 2.0.0. So the full release notes can be found inside the modem zip folder, and that you can find on our webpage. So that's where you can download the modem zip, and then in there you can find the full release notes. Focus has been on carrier and customer fixes, power consumption, and also location. We do also have a few GNSS fixes that does improve GNSS performance. We also have reduced mobility for stationary devices. We also fixed a flow control issue between the modem and the application, which is very useful. And we have an obstructed satellite visibility detection feature for GNSS. So let's say your device is indoors, for example, or it doesn't have good visibility of the sky. Instead of spending a lot of time trying to get a GNSS fix when it's not likely to get a GNSS fix, this feature will be able to tell the modem firmware that, yeah, there's no point trying to look for a fix now. You probably won't get it. So that can save quite a lot of power. On the nRF Connect SDK version 2.0.0, there the focus has been on nRF Cloud, also on location, device management, and security too. We also had a big focus on ease of use, documentation, and a few various optimizations. So just some of the main highlights: we did update the Zephyr Lightweight Machine-to-Machine Stack to version 1.1. We have AV System Coyote Lightweight Machine-to-Machine support. So AV System is very well known on their device management side. And now you can, connect your nRF 9160 based device to AV system, and then that one can actually integrate with our nRF Cloud location services for location data. We also have Trusted Firmware M as a replacement for Secure Partition Manager for a lot of the samples. And we have nRF Connect for VS Code is the default ID. And here on the right, actually, you might not know, but we do have a fundamentals course for the nRF Connect SDK. So if you're new to that, it might be worth checking that out. Yep. So what we also have is we enable power optimized and full featured device management and location services through lightweight machine to machine and co-op. So I talked a bit about this before, but just some more details here. So we have support for nRF Cloud location services through lightweight machine to machine objects, and that is supported by AV System. So right now we have support for single cell, multi-cell, and a GPS. And this is supported in the lightweight machine-to-machine client sample, and there's also experimental support in the asset tracker v2. And this is very useful also for narrowband IoT based devices. So we have had some issues with narrowband IoT and TCP. So let's say over MQTT that can be an issue. And here UDP-based protocols, lightweight machine-to-machine, can be more useful. So that's very good addition. And of course, you have the great device management functionality that AV System provides. So this is all in all a very good, can be a very good solution to use. We also have easy-to-use location library APIs. So you can combine different location technologies. So let's say cell-based location services and GNSS-based through the same application API. Very useful. We have also updated embed TLS to 3.0 or 3.x, and we've unified development around nRF Connect for VS Code as the default ID. If you haven't, tried nRF Connect for VS Code, it's basically an extension to the very popular VS Code ID, and it's very good ID extension, so it's worth checking out. And we do have another. If you go to webinars.nordicsemi.com, you can actually see a webinar where we go through some of the basics of nRF Connect for VS Code, so that might be worth taking a look at. For Zephyr lightweight machine-to-machine version 1.1. So just a quick intro to lightweight machine-to-machine. It is an app layer protocol with device management focus. It is based on CoAP UDP and defined by the Open Mobile Alliance. Like I already said, lightweight machine-to-machine carrier library is required by some network operators, and we do have a lightweight machine-to-machine carrier sample in our SDK. So this new version does add composite read, write, and notification. It also has send operation, and we have the CBOR and JSON data formats added. On the AV System plus nRF Cloud location services side, like I said, this does offer a full-featured lightweight machine-to-machine device management with support for nRF Cloud location services. So that can either be using our Zephyr lightweight machine-to-machine stack or the AV System OnJ lightweight machine-to-machine stack. So basically what happens there is Nordic delivers the location services and AV System delivers the device management. And here you have the nRF Cloud location services through the Coyote lightweight machine-to-machine server. And this is used both in the lightweight machine-to-machine client sample and the asset tracker v2 application. So that is, good to know. And there is a free trial and getting started documentation. Just take a look at our partner page. And here on the right-hand side, we can see that the device does connect to AV System. And then AV System then communicates via the REST API to nRF Cloud, where the location data is received. And then you have, your own, if you want to communicate to your own cloud, etc., that is then possible via AV System. Just a quick efficiency comparison. I don't want to go too much into detail, but LightWEM machine-to-machine can be a very useful device management, a very useful protocol for low power constrained devices. So as you can see on initial connection, you can see compared to MQTT, LightWEM machine-to-machine can be 72% more efficient, steady state 31%, data reporting 88%, single platform to device roughly 17%. So the source here is Machination. We're using AWS IoT MQTT broker and the AV System Coyote LightWEM machine-to-machine server. The data reporting scenario is an update of one string, one floating point number, one integer, and one boolean every 30 seconds. And then 10 reports are done over 5 minutes. So if you're not sure, which protocol to choose, LightWEM machine-to-machine might be a good option for your use case. And yeah, last but not least, just some quick, tools that you can use to save power. So we of course have our nRF 9160 system and package, which is a great on the hardware side. We also do have an online power profiler, which is a very useful tool to basically it basically takes lab measurements over different various parameters, and then it uses those to show sort of power estimates. So you can set different parameters, and then you can see what your power consumption curve will look like for the different parameters you set. This is very useful on the power optimization guide then, so you can actually use these config parameters, and then the power optimization guide will show how to take it basically from theory to an application, put that in, and then afterwards, once you're ready to go, you can use the Power Profiler Kit 2, which works very well with our nRF 9160 DK and Thingy91, and then you can hopefully see the same power consumption on the device itself as you have seen in theory on the online power profiler. And that's also one way you can basically check to make sure that you are getting the lowest power that you can get. So if the numbers on the Power Profiler Kit application look similar to the online Power Profiler app, you've done a good job. So yeah, last but not least, before we move on with the Q&A, if you enjoyed this webinar, feel free to sign up for more webinars at webinars.nordicsemi.com. You can get tech support and join our community at devzone.nordicsemi.com. And feel free to find out more about our products and services at nordicsemi.com. So without further ado, let's move on to the Q&A.